You're going to step on the resistance band, and then you're going to have your hands as far apart as you need to have them in order to be able to squat down in your functional range of motion. It's going to be a lot easier if the hands are further apart, and it's going to be a lot harder on your vertical core strength and mobility if your hands are closer together. Taking that into consideration, choose the best hand position and the best foot position for you, and then go ahead and lower those hips into the squat position. If you're feeling any pressure in your low back, probably need to reduce the amount of distance that you drop your hips in that squat, in that overhead squat. If you have too much extension in your lower back and you're feeling pain there as well, either your back is bending and flexing or your back is too extended, right? Think about engaging your abs as you do the overhead squat. So for the seated calf raises, you're going to be in a seated position. You're going to do the same thing as the standing calf raises. And the reason why you would do either of these is the seated calf raise is going to work the soleus, which is that big muscle inside of your calf. And then the standing calf raise is going to work your gastrocnemius, which are the two heads on the outside of your calf or of your lower leg. So in the seated calf raise position, again, you're gripping either side of the resistance band and making sure that you're stepping on the middle of the resistance band with the balls of your feet and the toes so it doesn't slide out from under you when you do the calf raise. And you're just driving those heels up as high as you possibly can in the seated position. For the step back lunge, one foot is going to be stepping in the center of the resistance band, and then either hand is going to be on either side. That is going to be your plant foot, the foot that stays there. And then the other foot is going to step back, swing back, and then you're going to drop into a lunge position. Again, you're going to feel tension up in that standing position as that resistance band gets stretched. And so it's going to create far more engagement throughout the entire lunge, because gravity is going to be the thing that's creating the resistance in the low part of the lunge as you reverse step back. For the overhead press with the resistance bands, part of the band is going to be down underneath your feet, and then the other part is in and through your hands. You're pressing in the same way that you would do an overhead press with dumbbells or a barbell. So think about keeping your hands slightly in front of your shoulder and then fully extending vertically straight up. If you can, have the overhead extension all the way up above your head, but oftentimes you don't have the requisite mobility with your lats. So it's okay to press the bands a little bit forward so that you don't have any undue strain in your lower back to try to compensate for that overhead press. The band is going to actually be around the upper back and through each hand. In that position, it's just adding extra resistance to a regular push-up. So you're still focusing on the fundamentals of the regular push-up. So think ankle, knee, hip, shoulder, ear in perfect alignment. Think squeezing your front of your thigh or your quads, thinking about squeezing your glutes or your butt, squeezing your abs, keeping your abs nice and engaged, and keeping your shoulders down and back and your scapula nice and engaged with a proud chest as you do the resistance band push-ups. You're going to be stepping on the resistance band, putting both hands through the resistance band, and then curling it up in a regular curl type fashion. Now, obviously, abs need to stay nice and engaged, but you may need to have a slight bend in the knee, maybe a slight bend in the hip with the abs engaged, shoulders down and back, and the chest proud. Another way to do the standing curl, if that horizontal type position, almost like mimicking a barbell or something, doesn't quite work, you can do sort of a hammer curl where you're actually grabbing the vertical part of the resistance band and hammer curling it up. Think about keeping your elbows nice and tight to the sides, shoulders down and back, and keep your elbows from driving too far back behind you as you do the curl. That's going to increase the amount of tension you're going to feel in your biceps. You're going to be in a full kneeling position. Also do half kneeling, and there's a standing and tons of other ways to do the Palloff press. But the Palloff press, you're essentially creating resistance that's trying to rotate you towards where the resistance band is tied off. And that resistance, that anti-rotation, is going to massively engage your external, internal obliques, as well as your rectus abdominis, as well as your transverse abdominis, the muscles coming across, even in your intercostals and your upper back. your pecs, everything is going to engage to hold you in that position with your arms fully extended. So with the Palloff Press, you're bringing your hands towards your chest, with your hands basically gripping your hands on top of the resistance band, and then you're pressing those hands away from you so your arms are fully extended, and then repeating as necessary. Your hands are going to be basically next to each other in front of you, fully extended arms, gripping the resistance band on either side. And then you're going to stretch that resistance band apart by pulling apart the band and try to bring your hands all the way back to the lateral side of your body while your arms are fully extended. What would then happen is the resistance band would then be touching your chest. That's the full version. Obviously, maybe you don't have the requisite strength or the requisite stability or mobility necessary to do that. So you can always do half reps. You can always do 3/4 reps. You can always do quarter reps, depending on the level of the resistance band and the level of your strength. You're going to tie off that resistance band to something behind you and low, and then you're looping your foot into that resistance band, and then with driving against that resistance band, you're driving that knee forward and up as far as you possibly can, doing a knee drive. And then you would do as many as you need to do, or you could have maybe 2 bands and do alternating. There's a bunch of different ways to do the banded knee drive. In this demonstration, you're going to see I'm going to do one side and then I'm going to do the other side. The whole time, it's massively engaging my vertical core as well as my hip flexors. This is incredibly important to balance out any extra glute strength that you might have. In the bottom part of the deadlift, when your hips are in that hinged down position, that's when you would do your bent over row. So you'll come down into a deadlift at the bottom of the deadlift, then you will execute a bent over row, keeping your elbows in tight, driving your elbows as high as you can, bringing those hands towards your hips. That's going to incorporate a lot of lat engagement as well as upper back musculature engagement. And then you're going to bring the hands all the way back down into the bottom of that bent over row position, and then execute a stand up from the deadlift. And then you will repeat as necessary. You're essentially doing an alternating plank rotation, just adding in the resistance band. So holding the resistance band with one hand, that's your plant hand, and then rotating with the resistance band in the other hand, resisting against the resistance band while you open up into that rotational plank, bringing that hand up as high as you possibly can. With straight legs, keeping your knees locked and keeping your abs engaged as much as possible. You're putting the resistance band around your legs to create resistance for the outsides of your hips. So your glute medius is going to feel a lot of engagement as you do the straight leg lateral step. As you step out, you're stepping out into your functional range of motion that you can still control, and you're not trying to shoot it out. You're trying to do a smooth step out and then a smooth step in, keeping the resistance even as you step in. You still want to feel a mild bit of resistance as your feet step close, and then your feet are going to step wide again. You'll do however many rounds or reps that you need to do, and then you're going to go into the opposite direction. With one foot or both feet stepping on the band, you're going to grip the band behind you and drive that band up vertically in a standing tricep extension. A couple things to think about. If you don't have the requisite shoulder mobility, go ahead and bring that elbow forward a little bit. That's going to take a little bit of the undue strain out of the shoulder. And typically what happens if you don't have the mobility is you also feel a little bit of pinching pain or tension in your lower back. Think about keeping your abs engaged and your chest nice and proud while you're in this position, and try, if you can, to get that elbow stacked above your shoulder as you do that tricep extension. That's going to isolate the tricep the best and create the burn that you're looking for in your tricep. You're either starting with your right or you're starting with your left. One foot is going to be stepping on the resistance band, and then that same side hand is going to be looped into the resistance band. And then you're doing a basic overhead press, but you're doing it with just one hand. This is going to really help you focus on maybe any sort of asymmetries or imbalances you might have by doing it unilaterally. Unilaterally meaning just one side. So you just focus on one side and then you do the other side, and maybe you realize that you're not as strong or you don't last as long. By doing it alternately, you can hyper focus on one arm instead of kind of not realizing the asymmetries as you do both arms at the same time. You're pretending you have a bow in one hand, and then you're drawing that arrow back, right, with that bowstring in the other hand. Only you're going to use the resistance band. You may need to double up the resistance band or just choke up on the resistance band in order to feel some tension. You have to play with the type of resistance band you have, how much resistance is in that resistance band, and how much range of motion you're trying to travel in that bow and arrow pull.
Bring it back to the break of my body.